Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and my name is Nurisha Dana binti Syarul, and my metric number is 281875. So today I would like to present the definition of dependency theory and also some of the history of dependency theory. So let's get started with the definition of dependency theory. The definition of dependency theory is a way of acknowledging the economic underdevelopment by the global economy and also by the political order. Underdevelopment is created by the periphery role of countries in the global economy. Underdevelopment countries can sell the inexpensive raw materials to the advanced countries, which the advanced countries will produce the finished good. So, the underdeveloped nation will purchase the finished good at a higher price. So that means the global economy was split into two peripheral wealthy center and weak. Okay, in a simple explanation, like the poor country is selling their commodities to the rich country at a lower price. Then the rich country will produce the finished good. Okay, then the rich country will sell back the finished good to the poor country. So this will make the poor country export earning will never be sufficient to cover for their import, because they have to sell the raw materials at a lower price and they have to buy back with a higher price. Okay, so the next one is the history of dependency theory. So this theory was a pioneer by the Raoul Prebisch that founded in the late of 1950s. Okay, Prebisch and his colleagues were concerned about the economic growth in the advanced industrialized countries. So they made a research. So their research found out that the economic activities in the richer countries was resulted to a serious economic problem in the poorer countries. So the traditional neoclassical framework said that almost nothing from this subject, except that the poor countries were very slow to adopt with the economic practice. So that's it from me. So passing to the next presenter. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Noraimi Zuaida binti Muhammad Zahid, and my matrix number is 281129. Okay, so for today I'll be continuing my part, which is the dependency theory relations with global economic system. So dependency theory, it was used to describe why non-industrialized countries struggle to grow economically through contributions from industrialized nations. And the fundamental point of this theory is that the global economic system is extremely unequal in terms of control and wealth allocation, largely due to the influence of colonization and neocolonialism, which the dependency theory opposes the new classical model's core distributive mechanism, which is also known as the trickle-down economics. The new classical economic growth model, it pays no attention to the issue of wealth distribution, which leads to the prime concern. The prime concern is the efficient production, and it believes that the market can distribute the benefits of efficient production in a fair and unbiased manner. This assertion may make sense in a well-integrated politically fluid economy in which people can adapt to economic shifts and consumer habits, which are not skewed by the non-economic factors such as racial, cultural, or gender prejudice. Okay, so following the dependency theory events or phenomenon, so the case study that we've chosen are the conceptual lens to understand China's presence in Africa. So the background of this case study is about the growing relations between China and Africa that have been accompanied with intense scrutiny. There's been a lot of interest from the media, Western governments, and others where where negative and positive views have been expressed, and also accusations have also been made of China's ongoing presence in Africa, with being an attempt to neo-colonize Africa. Therefore, Chinese engagement with Africa is not a new phenomenon, but in fact, China and Africa, they share a common past with Africa, as China too had suffered hardship under Western imperialism. Following the Bandung Conference of 1955, China also gave diplomatic and military support in Southern Africa. However, from this support, relations did improve, with Beijing normalizing their diplomatic relations with all African countries, irrespective of their ideological differences, and increasing its overseas development assistance. Also, African countries welcomed more financial aid and technical assistance from China. Moreover, China's commitment to providing development assistance and technical support to African countries was seen as quite remarkable, as China itself at that time was quite poor compared to some African countries. Therefore, the relations were no longer based on ideological interests but on commercial interests. And the new era of Sino-African relations ushered in relations devoid of ideological interests of the past, but a focus on practical results, mutual benefits, and common development, driven by China's developmental objectives and its increasing energy demand. Also, China has signed infrastructure financing agreements with over 35 African countries, the largest recipients being Nigeria, Angola, Sudan, and Ethiopia. Also, China had promised to double its size of aid to Africa. Therefore, projects like One Belt, One Road initiative could potentially boost African economies, particularly those of Kenya, Djibouti, and Egypt, as the inclusion of their parts in the Silk Maritime Road will lead to more investment in infrastructure and an increase in regional trade. That is all from me. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Berlina Haikalham with number matric 276-399, and I'm here want to explain about the factor of success from Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, and Hong Kong. Firstly, Singapore. Singapore has three key main factors of their success, such as Lee Kuan Yew's policies, then free trade, and then port activities. The historical fact that Lee Kuan Yew opened himself to investment and further has succeeded in making Singapore a natural hub for various multinational companies. This is of interest to cooperation around the world. Lee Kuan Yew is also known as an iron-handed leader when leading his people. He has carried out various policies to improve the welfare of the people of Singapore. Furthermore, port activity due to Singapore's strategic location has made its port a center of world trade, especially in terms of logistics, and this certainly has a major impact on the country's foreign exchange earnings. Singapore also has a free market economic system that makes many investors in the world interested in investing in Singapore and has a good impact on the development of Singapore itself. Secondly is Hong Kong. Hong Kong has three key main factors of their success, such as free market, education system, and tourism. Even though Hong Kong is still part of the People's Republic of China, they have their own economic system, namely the free market. With the strategic location of the country and also having a pluralistic society of various races, it makes it easy for investors from all over the world to invest in Hong Kong and makes Hong Kong as an investment center in the Eastern world. Likewise, the second factor is the education system. Hong Kong has a good education system and quality because it is influenced by the education system by British. The third is the tourism sector, which has a major impact on the state income. Hong Kong is a country rich in the culture and natural scenery so that it attracts many world tourists to visit. In 2019, 26 million tourists visited Hong Kong, making it the top ranking in the most visited country. Thirdly is Taiwan. Taiwan has three key factors of their success. Firstly, technology, and then agriculture, and then foreign aid from US. Taiwan is a country that has advances in technology. For example, nearly 40% of microchips and technology from electronic devices such as computers and laptops come from Taiwan. This done by Taiwan, a major exporter of technology, which had a significant impact on the country's foreign exchange. Second, the agricultural sector plays a major role in improving the welfare of the people of Taiwan. And third is the foreign aid. At the time of establishment of Taiwan, Taiwan was heavily dependent on economic assistance from the US to recover its economy, which was devastated by the civil war on the mainland of China. This has a big impact on Taiwan because through the economic aid provided by the US, they focus on investing in technology and agriculture, which then becomes a factor for the success of their country. Fourth, and the last is South Korea. South Korea has three key factors of their success, such as technology, export activities, and creative economy. South Korea has a lot of progress that has made it from disadvantaged country to develop as it is now. The first factor is technology. The development of technology in South Korea is growing so rapidly, but in the electronics and military fields. This is influenced from the many big brands of electronic devices in the world that come from South Korea, such as Samsung, LG, and the others. Likewise, in the military field, South Korea has made many collaboration and cooperation in the manufacture of such as fighter aircraft and weapons. The second factor is export activities. With the many advances that South Korea has in various sectors such as transportation and electronics, making brands originating from South Korea increasingly known as and having a lot of demands in other countries. And the last one is their creative economy sector, which is called the Korean Wave. With the size of their entertainment sector, this sector has become the main stage for South Korea in marketing their local products and introducing their culture to spread their soft power. But apart from that, this sector is also a contributor to state revenue. Thank you.
My name is Abhiram Sirfan with metric number 276385, and today I will explain about characteristic of Taiwan and characteristic of Singapore and similarity between four Asian nation tiger. First, I will explain about Taiwan in sector economy. American aid has really helped Taiwan in improving Taiwan agriculture sector, which has been left neglected after being left behind by Japan. American aid provides Taiwan with agriculture assistance in the form of a land reform program. The land reform program includes policies such as leasing public land to tenant farmers, limiting leases to 37.5% of estimated harvest, and severely restricting the size of individual land ownership, which allows landlords to sell part of their land to the government in exchange for 2.5 times the estimated harvest in the form of stock and bonds. In addition to agriculture, Taiwan economy also increased again in the late 1950s through manufacture. Taiwan is known as an export of cheap manufactured goods produced by small companies that are in flexible subcontracting network. In Taiwan's foreign relation characteristic, Taiwan has a good relation with United States. Relation between two countries has been established since Taiwan's separation from Republic of China. United States give aid to Taiwan in agriculture, as mentioned earlier, and the United States and Taiwan also made a mutual defense treaty, where the United States offered Taiwan a military protection. This was also carried out by United States in order to prevent Taiwan to declaring a war to China mainland. Also, Taiwan has also joined in 38 international organizations, including the World Trade Organization, the Asian Development Bank, the Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation, and the Central American Bank. Taiwan also have a great relation with the European Union. Both countries shared common values such as democracy, freedom, human rights, and the rule of law. Also on 10 April 2013, Taiwan and Japan made a fishery agreement after 17 attempts of negotiation. That agreement is resulting in expansion of fishing fields for Taiwan vessels in Diaoyu Tai Island in the East China Sea. The next country that I will discuss is Singapore characteristic. The first one is in economy. Singapore is a small country that does not have natural resources that can be used as an export commodity. Singapore's strategic location became a very important trade route. Also, Singapore became the link between Asia and Europe. This was also what made the British colonialists in the past choose Singapore as the main port. During Lee Kuan Yew's leadership, he was faced with a problem of high unemployment, which greatly affected the country's economy. To attract foreign investment, Singapore government lowered taxes and promoted science education to create highly educated workforce. Although labor rights and union power were diminished, so corporations could benefit from cheap. Singapore characteristic in foreign relations. Singapore became fully a sovereign nation after separating from Federation of Malaysia. Singapore must struggle because as a small island city nation, Singapore needs to take assistance from various nations in continuity of the country. And as a condition for formation of a five-power defense agreement as the defense partner, five-power defense agreement is one form of a foreign relation in the Singapore in the field of military. Singapore also participates actively in diplomacy as a member of Association of Southeast Asia Nation or ASEAN and was one of the founding members of ASEAN in 1967. Singapore also establishes a close relation with the United States. The US and Singapore has established an expanding and long-lasting relation based on sharing economic interests, strong military and defense cooperation, and crucially cooperation. Singapore and the United States made a bilateral free trade agreement that was signed in 2004. Since then, bilateral trade has increased by 62%, reaching in goods trade in 2016. With $228 billion in investment stock in 2016, the United States in Singapore is Singapore's largest foreign investor.
Hi everyone, my name is Kalista Desandira Rahab and my metric number is 281641. I am from the group 4 and today I will be explaining the character analysis from Hong Kong and South Korea on why they could be one of the Asian Tigers countries. Thank you, keep on watching. So I will be beginning with Hong Kong. Hong Kong is the world's second largest economic growth country and plays an important part in the global economy. Hong Kong is sometimes referred as to Asia's financial Mecca. Global trade tensions, long-running demonstration, and rivalry have both contributed to Hong Kong's current situation. Hong Kong is used by Chinese companies to collect money and as Chinese gateway to foreign capital markets. Many state-owned mainland Chinese firms that are funded by the Chinese government are classified into the international exchange in order to collect more cash and establish more and greater prestige, which could attract more foreign investments. It is extremely lucrative for Hong Kong to be at the center of the national public offerings, capital raisers, and loan originations during economic foreign expansions. Hong Kong is also a popular tourist destination, with Hong Kong International Airport serving as the region's primary travel center. From their foreign affairs, Hong Kong foreign policy is not different at all from Taiwan's foreign policy. Taiwan and Hong Kong, as well as the mainland China's differences, is based on their regulations and set of rules. They both use their own set of rules and regulation with the exception of the defense and foreign affairs. This is laid out in their basic law. Basic law is basically the Hong Kong Constitution and national law for China. They use the system called one country and two system principle. China's reputation is in Asia was improved by its strong participation in new regional organizations that arose in the 1990s. China also took part in ASEAN Regional Forum, ASEAN Plus 3, and the East Asian Summit in a big way, and they refused to delegate the crisis management power to some other countries until 2013. Continuing with South Korea, South Korea's economy has maintained its role as one of the world's most open economies. South Korea is rated 7th of the 40 Asian nations, and its total ranking is higher than the regional and the global average. After decades of rapid economic development and global integration, South Korea has developed into 2 trillion high-tech advanced economy driven by industries like electronics, telecommunication, automotive manufacturing, chemicals, shipbuilding, and steel. What stands out from South Korea is the Samael Undong, or Samael Undong, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, but to help minimize the significant gap between the rural areas and the industrial cities, South Korea implemented this movement, or the one that I said before, Samael Undong. The growing industrial sector of South Korea became more aware of modern fertilization on crops. South Korea also began upgrading into higher quality of education. And one of the 3 most popular universities are like Seoul National University, KAIST, and Yonsei. South Korea thinks that the only way they could get rich is if they could embrace effectively, use modern technologies on the level where they could compete in a global growing market. South Korea developed an industrial capacity where they compete with Japan. South Korea even became the world's low-cost manufacturer for a significant while. The government is severely dependent on the 3 big companies because they hold almost 2/3 of the nation's economy. These said companies is like Hyundai, Samsung, and LG. These companies are labeled as too big to fail, so the nation is completely dependent on them. The 3 companies will continue to depend on the government because the nation's company could cripple if they crumble. You get it? The US will continue to be Korea's most important ally, not just in terms of building regional or cross-regional multilateral economic structures, but also in countering growing Chinese presence in the area. For their foreign affairs, when developing and implementing foreign policies in today's South Korea's foreign policy leaders must consider the perspective of wider range of bureaucratic actors, private sector's interests, non-governmental advocates, and their public opinions. South Korea has been more active in multilateral organizations such as ASEAN or Association of Southeast Asian Nation Forums. They also extended their economic ambitions outside of Asia, from natural gas discovery to the nuclear reactor building. As part of the diplomatic rivalry for legitimacy with North Korea, totalitarian regimes in South Korea use security agencies to perform diplomacy. South Korea is still maintaining a distance with North Korea. Thank you so much for everyone's attention. I hope this video will be useful, and thank you so much. Bye!
Things in common. The 4 Asian Tiger nations have similar aspects in developing the process of their country. There are several aspects that have in common, among others. The first one is in the industrial development. South Korea, Singapore, Hong Kong, and Taiwan experienced significant economic process after they started developing their industries, especially the manufacturing industry. Countries like South Korea, Taiwan, Singapore at the beginning of their development started from low-cost manufacture, and they also have low labor costs. This development began to appear when they were able to compete with several other developed countries. And the second one is educated workforce. The 4 Asian Tiger nations are aware that one of the factors in the process of their industry is a competent workforce. Therefore, they are committed to educating their workforce so that this country can produce competent experts. The third one is free trade agreement or FTA with great country. All 4 Asian Tiger nations have a free trade agreement with superpower country. For example, Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan have signed a free trade agreement with United States of America. However, Hong Kong signed a free trade agreement with People Republics of China. The free trade agreement has had a significant impact on the country economy. And the fourth one is part of multilateral organization. All four Asian nation tigers join multilateral organization. They are actively involved in diplomacy and cooperation between countries both regionally and worldwide.
Hello everyone, this is Subhan Muhammad Hafiz with metric number 276394. And now I'm gonna present my part, which is the reason why the rest of developing African states remain stagnant and backwards in socio-economic growth and development. Firstly, I would like to say that there is numerous works of literature on development that offer on this kind of interpretations issues and its dependency. While the main things that influence Africa itself is the outside influence, that they are too dependent to other countries in terms of human resource and its development. And most of all, their dependency are coming from the Western powers such as USA, United Kingdom, and mostly right now is China. So perhaps a non-Eurocentric ideology that the continent does have a huge potential with its mineral, but due to this kind of issues and underdevelopment that they are still on dependency that focus of the influence of the Western power, they were likely to be unaffordable to manage their own resources. So thus on the next part is the reason why. Many discuss why Africa develops with particular focus, that is blaming on its, firstly, its leadership and its political commitment. As we can see, some of the power government in some of the African states, they were too many lacking of political commitment, such as there's too many dictatorships and also an insufferable of the government itself. And many of the leaderships are focused on the single-handed and using a metal fist kind of government. And the second one is, as we can see, it's the working practice. What is the working practice that it said? It is said that the working practice are, firstly, its own resources that's lacking on the professional and educational terms. And also its working practice didn't focus on the work, but mostly it's focused on many traditional tactic ways. And the third one is the geography. As we can see that many in Africa states geography are mostly not that green for some parts of the Africa. They do have many jungles and many kinds of terms in the green part land, but due to this geography, it is hard to transmit the export and the import of its many continental, which is also due to its fourth problem, which is the cross-border conflict and terrorism. So the geography plus the cross-border conflict, it creates things that keep the Africa itself underdeveloped. And one of it was tropical disease. As we know, mostly that many of the African states, they were still unable to keep up their medical health standards, and thus it's create a problem that is mostly the tropical disease. Not only tropical actually, mostly such as yellow fever. I apologize, that is also a tropical disease, but mostly like a big disease that's spreading in Africa, such as Ebola, which is create major problems in some African states, even though it's been contagious in good terms by the WHO, but still others kind of disease that MERS and SARS, which is still exists in its in the African states. And last but not least is the overexploitation of natural resource. Why? It is said that many of these resources were overexploited due to its mining. Since of this overexploitation, it's also affect its working practice and its kind of other problems, such as firstly it's the other than working ethics, it's also the standardization and also the standard operational of procedure. So most of this overexploitation, they didn't benefit that much because this overexploitation were taken off to the black markets or the black buy, as we can say that non-formal trading to the rest of the world. They were taken on embargo and I'm sorry, not embargo. It was taken to via black selling or back selling, we call it. Not in the front selling, such as we know in the official store and also trade agreements, but behind. So that is my part of the presentation on the reason of the West Africa developing states is remain stagnant and why it's still going backwards on its socio-economic growth and development. And thus, all of what I have present to you is based on my knowledge and based on my own research. And with all furthermore agree that I think since I'm the last part of my team that to present, we are going to move on to the question and answer part, the Q&A type. So feel free to give us a question if you guys have any kinds of questions. We would like to, we hope to give you the best explanation as we can. Thank you.